up and call it an AMA, Ask Me Anything, but it's also an open forum. So like we saw yesterday, we had 3 different people jumping in and just having a lot of conversation and inviting those of you that want to jump in and actually go on video and chat things up with us. We're certainly going to do a lot of that today. So as questions and comments come up, of course, drop them in the chat, but also please raise your hand. There's a button over by your name or somewhere it is. I'm not sure where the button is on what you're seeing on your end on Zoom. But you can raise your hand, and if we can get to you, we'll bring you into the conversation and put you on video and have a chat. Tim, did you have also some questions that you trolled from what came up during the week and questions that we didn't get to?
Yeah, and the first question that people ask is, who's this guy in the middle that always hangs out on the Zoom call that doesn't say anything? They want to know who Ethan is.
Should I tell him? Or should we just let him be the mystery man?
Yeah.
Well, I can introduce him. He's sort of a behind the camera guy, so I don't want to put him on the spot. But Ethan is our media expert that helps us with the podcast and all of our video and all of our content needs. And he's an awesome support behind the scenes. And I will say this, for those of you that are our clients, you probably recognize his name because he's on a lot of those communications, helping facilitate things. So if you've ever sent an email to support@revthink.com, it probably went to Ethan.
Yeah, I know that we depend on Ethan a lot, especially when you do your Jumpstart program, the cohort program, a lot of the Q&As we do. So Ethan, thanks for being part of all this and keeping the ship pointed straight. If you're That's there, right. Ethan, I think we're in the swivel chairs in the back doing the, right? Do we get the taking on the heat as we're doing this?
All right, well, let's see. There's, so I'm seeing a couple good questions, a follow-up from Colin, also a question from Gaston Sozo down in South America. But Tim, did you have a hot question or two that we didn't get to this week that you wanted to start with?
Yeah, well, today I know for certain that I've seen it in a few emails and chats that I've been in. People want to know, has anyone received the funding from the PPP yet or any other verification? So, this is kind of a secondhand report, but I had a client who sent an email chain to me and a few other advisors. And we did hear that people have received some of their PPP funding already. So today, I would guess they are probably one of the first people. So a week ago, they turned in their application and got it. And this was just like a connection through an accountant. So I'm guessing that we're kind of on the cusp of beginning that process. And from what I understand, it was Chase Bank that this person got the information from. So yeah, Chase customers are getting it. I personally am still actually turning in an application with another bank because I bank with Wells Fargo, and any of you at Wells Fargo know that when this is done, we're all leaving that bank, right? Yes. So reaching out to some of the smaller banks, I'm still turning in applications. So I know people are still receiving applications as well.
Yeah, and one little update from my side, Tim, I shared with you earlier, but I'll share with folks here that one of my clients received her loan approval a few days ago and today got the paperwork. So still no money, but got the paperwork. And I will say it is rather conspicuous that the loan paperwork she received says, this is a loan, it must be paid back, this is the interest rate. And it basically said, if the loan is to be forgiven, that's between you and the SBA. But as far as you, us, the lender, and you, the person taking out this money, you have to pay us back. And I think the payments began in November and everything was due within 18 months. So my advice to her was, for now, if we're going to be conservative, let's treat this like a line of credit. We'll take that money, stick it in a 2% American Express savings account, and just use it if we really, really need it. But until we know it's forgivable, we're not going to go spend it on operations.
Okay, yeah, that might be, I might challenge you on that advice. If this is the loan we're getting from the SBA, you're supposed to spend 80% of that loan on payroll during the next 8-week period. So make sure you have some plan on where that money is going to go through a payroll processing service, and make sure that money does leave to get itself out there so it is spent. Yes. I'm looking at the paperwork now, Joel, because you sent it to me. It does say the interest rate on this is 1%, which is the kind of the promise, which is hey, anything outstanding that's not forgiven is a 1% continuation. But you definitely don't want to get in a situation where you haven't exercised the correct way to use that. So call that lender, make sure you understand how the terms are, how the audit will take place from the SBA to have it forgiven. I would
Yes.
also just recommend that you start paying those monthly payments on time starting in November until the rest of it's forgiven.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that, because I think what we actually said was we'll use that money obviously for payroll, but the other cash that we have, we'll put that into a bank account called our line of credit. So, but good point. We do need a paper trail that says we are using these funds for payroll.
Yeah,
And
Dallas Taylor said something. I'm terrified to actually spend any of the money to the moving target. Yeah, take your current cash that doesn't have the obligation, move that to a savings account, bring in that PPP money, and use it as programmed.
yeah, I was going to actually invite Dallas. I was going to invite Dallas to share with us this. I think this point that he makes is really good here. I'm terrified to actually spend any of the money due to the moving target, which I think is, unfortunately, it's this really tricky situation that a lot of you are in, because until we really know if the loan is forgivable, that's obviously a big deal. Hey, Mr. Dallas, I'm going to promote you to panelist so we can see your face. Are you there? We're waiting for Zoom to switch it
on
over.
mute. You're on mute, Dallas. Yeah, I can.
Hello. There we go.
Oh, there you
There
go.
you are. Okay,
I think we were
cool.
fight muting each other. You were
That's
unmuting,
right.
I was muting. Yeah.
Yeah, what's the latest? Are you getting any official word from your bank, or is it still in this gray area?
Nothing. I haven't heard. I put my I did the EIDL thing like immediately through the SBA like everybody else. And then the PPP, I did that. I actually caught that the night before Chase announced it. The next morning I got the email and they were like, wait for the email. But I just happened to keep refreshing it. And then it popped up at like 10 o'clock at night. And I like raced to my computer, filled out the whole thing. And then the first time I filled out the whole thing, the site crashed. And it was like, and literally the error was like, you have to start over. So I redid it. It went through. Provided a bunch of paperwork. I did not provide like that simple one sheet that some people are talking about, like exactly how you calculated your cost there, which I'm kind of bummed about. But I was also kind of bummed that like you had I think it was 4 or 5 document limit on what you could actually put up there. So anyway, for what it's worth, but to get to the point of like actually terrified to spend the money. So luckily we have a little bit of runway, which is enough that I've committed from day, like as soon as we all were forced to stay home, I was like, we can survive for like 2 to 3 months if the bottom falls out. Very thankfully, the bottom has not fallen out for us. It's been a kind of a consistent thing, shockingly. Like every single new job that comes in, I'm like, I cannot believe that job came in. So thankfully, and I think that there's just a little bit of that protection from post, and some of our live action directors and clients and stuff obviously are not working, but then some of the networks do so much of their promos from pre-existing content, so
Right.
still kind of trucking along because they don't actually have to shoot anything. So that's great. So luckily we're kind of trucking along. So we're in a situation where I think we are still volatile. There's no two ways about that, and I still think that doing the PP loan is absolutely necessary for our circumstances, because the bottom post could catch up to production at any point and it just falls out from underneath us. So as far as the May and June payroll, 100%, I'm keeping everybody on staff no matter what. So then with that extra bulk, if the bottom doesn't drop out, I mean, of course, if the bottom drops out, it's going straight to payroll, 100%. But if the bottom does not drop out, my intent is to put that bulk somewhere that I only use it exactly like what was just said about as a credit line, because I don't want to touch it, because I just don't know. It seems like even with the EIDL, now it's changing and there's confusion, and 1,000 per employee versus 10,000, 3 days versus, I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, I heard Colin recommended, I like this, is that put it into a separate account so you kind of know where the money's going.
Yep.
Listen, the best case scenario is it's all forgiven, right? So you don't have to pay it back at all. That's why we like this money. If something were to happen, it's a 1% loan, which 1% is nearly free. So the thought of like being able to kind of keep something going, and you can always pay it back. but really the opportunity is to kind of create a new capital in the company and have it forgiven. So just make sure you're talking to your lender and knowing what those terms are. I think we lost Dallas there. I think we pressed the wrong button. But Dallas, thanks for sharing. I think that many people are kind of feeling that same way. I see Jakin is on. Jakin, if you're on, it means you're correcting me for something. Did I say something wrong? Oh, Jakin's muted.
Oh, are you there, Mr. Jakin?
There.
Can you talk to us, Jakin?
What do you guys say?
I'm here, but no, I didn't have anything. Honestly, not sure why I became panelist.
Okay.
I saw your hand raised and I was like, oh, Jakin's raising his hand. I said something wrong. All right. Well, thanks, Jakin. Jakin, by the way, is one of the Rev thinkers. So he backs us up. So that's why I thought I'd drag him in if I was off.
So Tim, what we're, I know we're going to obviously have to get through hopefully a few more questions as we go because the time is going to always run out fast on us. There were quite a few questions we didn't get to earlier this week. What can you maybe sum up a bunch of those questions into one?
Probably the next question is, or the big topic we've covered and still had outstanding questions. So this one's right to you, Joel. I'll say it like this, like, where does sales begin? Well, you can answer it two ways. Should I start doing sales now? When should I start doing sales? Or where should I start doing sales? All of that kind of wraps up to like, where does the sales process begin today?
Oh man. Well, we could obviously spend a whole hour or two just talking about like, why do we even do sales? What is sales? All that kind of stuff. By the way, just a reminder, if someone did not get the free module about sales pipeline, feel free to DM me. I'm sharing that. But what I would say is this, Tim, that once you're clear about your genius, you've positioned your firm, you understand the value that you create for your clients, then you start recognizing that sales falls into one of three categories. And that is, we have repeat sales, we have inbound sales, and we have outbound sales. Generally speaking, right now, everyone seems to be asking about outbound sales. Like, how do I sell right now during a crisis and not seem like a self-serving, heartless, backslapper, glad hander, that kind of a thing. So I think that's really what everyone's asking. Would you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. There, kind of the way I've discovered, and if you've heard me talk about this over the last few days, you kind of get catching on what I'm saying is, I believe most of the answers are already in your head. Like, you actually know the answers. You've done it before. You've processed this. You've actually had crisis in your company before. What did you do before? And then my recommendation is get it out of your head. Like, sit down with a piece of paper and write it down, or walk through, who were my clients last year? What were their needs? How do I understand what their needs would be today? And kind of just move through some of that process that way.
Yeah, here's a thought too. I shared this opportunity matrix spreadsheet with everyone yesterday. And that tool can be helpful because what I would say to anyone that's wondering, what do I do about sales, is, first of all, maybe change the word and change it to something like, how do I build relationships during this time? How do I build trust with people? How do I just help people? Because sales is not convincing, it's not explaining, it's not informing, it's just sharing your expertise in the most helpful way possible. So maybe rewire your brain about that. But also, like, when I think about the opportunity matrix, I'll share
something. Throw that up here. Yeah, if I want to see that again, because I think it went by pretty fast yesterday, but just kind of show real quickly what it does.
Well, it allows me to have a whole bunch of opportunities. Like here on the left, I've got 23 opportunities that I think may or may not be a fit, but how do I prioritize them? Because if this list has 100 or 200, it answers the question, who do I reach out to first? And here I'm determining fit based on these parameters called real, relationship, reward, which are the 3 R's. And then I have this other parameter I call known, but this could be anything. I mean, this could be hair color or shoe size, or, can you get a referral? But here's a thought. See here on column B, what if here I said, used to be geography or location, but what if I said, do I actually know their problem? Because what I would say, the biggest mistake you make when you reach out doing sales is not actually having done your homework, and you assume. And in a time like this, you do not want to assume you understand the person's problem. You got to know it. Because reaching out and saying, hey, can we help you with this, that, and the other? If you're wrong, the person's going to be very offended. Like, how dare you? But if you do know their problem, So you do your homework. So imagine if their problem was something like they need to build audience. Here they need to promote. These people need to, they need retention, right? So now as you go down and you start saying I've done my homework and I know that right now we're the perfect fit to solve people that need to do promotion in a crazy time like this. Then I would just say, okay, I'm gonna go down here and fill all these out. And just for the sake of exercise, I'm gonna be nitty gritty here. But notice what I've done is I'm now gonna sort this sheet here based on problem. And then what I'll have happen is over here in my focus, I'm gonna see, oh, okay, all the people, you gotta wait for Google Sheet to catch up with me. But all the people that need retention, that's actually where I have the most opportunity. So if I'm really great at solving that kind of problem, I'm gonna go out and do my research and find out for this client, right down here, DirecTV, what does it look like for them to solve this retention problem? How do we solve this problem for others in this time? And that's where I would begin.
Usually the 3 R's, real, relationship, and reward, they have one meaning, right? Should I take on this job because it's good for my real? Should I take on this job because it's good for my relationship? Or take this job because it's good for reward? In this case, I kind of want to change the nuance of that meaning and saying, which of these jobs is my real good for? So using my current real, no future investment, which ones would be best suited for my current real? Or my current relationships. I want to use my current real. I want to use my current relationships. I want to use my current kind of like revenue streams or high margin projects and kind of reshuffle it that way so that the analysis is still relevant, but you're almost using up some of that reserve you've put in place in those 3 areas. So that's kind of the nuance that we've been talking about for the current area. We'll get back to when that's all inbound sales, right? Then you're kind of making that decision. Outbound sales, we have to focus differently.
Yeah, outbound is really a challenge right now. Now I noticed that Ryan just shared a really cool quote with us. I was going to see if he could raise his hand and just share that quick quote that he read from our friend Blair Enns. Hang on, I'm going to make him a panelist real quick. I know we're on a short leash here, so we'll try and make it quick. But Ryan, are you there?
I'm here.
Hey, mister.
Hey,
I know we're trying to keep it quick today, but what was the cool nugget that you picked up from Blair?
I mean, I go back and forth with Blair, but I thought this really resonated. He said, selling is not convincing right now. It's your job to look for people that might need help, and then map out how you might actually help them. I think it goes to what you were saying is, again, like partnering with people versus trying to sell to them.
Yeah. Here's I have this entrepreneurial formula. It's needs plus resources equals solution. That what I've been telling people right now is don't focus on the resources, meaning like this is who I am and what I'm about, what we're good at. Focus on the need part of it. So that's listening to the client, and then focus on the solutions part of it, which would be like expressing in a way of like case study, expressing your experience and how you've solved problems in the past. So other solutions you've done, and let those two kind of drive your target of how that formula would work. The resource part, you're going to have to kind of nuance into that to see if you're the right fit. But right now is not the time to desperately grab everything. I know that some people need work. I get the idea of choose the work and choose it wisely. But when it comes to that formula, that little nuance of a shift is kind of important right now. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, Ryan, thanks for sharing that quote, because I think it's a good example of you have to help your client connect the dots. Like it's not about you and what's in it for you. It's like what's in it for them and how you can help.
Yeah. You know what, the only suggestion I can give people, I think, is that maybe a worthy exercise is to go back to your reel or your offerings and retrofit, like backdoor what the solution actually was. Like the solution you provided wasn't necessarily just a 30-second video or a pre-roll or whatever it might be. You actually solved a different kind of problem, but because you're so stuck in the production mindset, you haven't really considered that. It might be worth going back and making a checklist of like, what problem did I really solve? And then you have that as almost ammunition to go back to people.
That's actually brilliant. If I use Joel's matrix, what I would do is in that that column with the problems, I would sort my old clients, my former clients that I know are still relevant today, answer the question, what problem did I solve? And then what real relationship reward outcome did I have, a 1, 2, or 3? And then kind of look at that as possibilities of targets to reach out to and be specific. So yeah, where to start? kind of just getting people out there having the conversations and feeling comfortable is really key. Hey, Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Joel, Colin asked the question, as a follow-up from yesterday, my big question is, what should live action companies do right now? Because the live action segment has been hit pretty hard. And there's opportunity for, I think, innovation, but what's he said yesterday, kind of like he's just waiting it out. But in a positioning or selling kind of moment, any specific recommendations?
Well, yeah, there's obviously a strategy called ride it out, right? Batten down the hatches. Some people have that option. Colin, you might, but I know I was speaking with Sarah and Caleb earlier in the week in Jumpstart as well as in the live stream, and they're in a bit more challenging situation. Like, no, I need to keep moving forward. I need to keep selling and doing projects. I think my question is to ask people, if you don't think of yourself as a service, right? Don't think about the commodities you sell or the services you sell, but rather the strategy. I would say, ask yourself things like, what is the real problem that we solve? And for example, I know we all hate this word, but I remember Sarah was talking about, well, we help our clients tell stories. We're storytellers. And that's, of course, a cliche term, but let's go with it for a second. Once you recognize, oh, we help our clients tell stories, then you start realizing, so we're not actually in the business of renting cameras and hiring gaffers, right, and going on location. We're actually in the business of helping clients tell stories that solve a problem. Then you start saying, well, who needs a story told right now? Who in a time like this is desperate to get a story out there? And now you start recognizing, oh, so maybe I have a library of footage that I can draw from. Maybe I can partner with one of my animation vendors and go to my client and help them solve how I tell that story. That's where I would go. Think of yourself as, I'm a director, I'm a storyteller, I'm an innovator, and I'm gonna get super freaking creative right now.
Yeah, you and I were talking to Chris Doe yesterday, and one of the kind of moments in the conversation, we were kind of picking into the parts of what is it that we really do, or what can these companies really do, and get down to storytelling as a part of it. And then there's this moment where he said, well, that would mean like, if you can have live action and storytelling and do stop motion, right? So clearly it's a different craft to do stop motion, but you start realizing like that pivot to, wait, there are things that take a camera and lighting and understanding and storytelling and perspective, and you can kind of work yourself through a storyline that doesn't need to have a big set and moving parts and helicopters and fireworks, or whatever too.
Yeah, one thing I found that Caleb talked about, and Sarah as well, was most live action production companies, if they're smart, they've managed their files and their archives where they have tons of footage that never saw the light of day. And one place I would start is I would look at my top 20 list in my sales pipeline, and I would ask the question, who did we work for this time last year? Because they're probably trying to solve the problem again this year. And we've got all these resources called footage sitting on our hard drives. Why not just pitch them? Let's recreate a spot similar to last year, but with brand new messaging that might be done with graphics or motion design or something like that. I mean, that's sort of a no-brainer. And I would just begin there. Like, make sure you've exhausted everyone on your top 20 list that you could possibly solve that kind of problem with those resources just sitting there.
Yeah, great. I know the challenge. I think you and I can make it sound very easy, simply like just start telling stories. And the reality is we are looking for clients. And some of the struggle there is the client willing to be flexible and go along with the pivot understanding too. One thing, just on a positive note, I have heard is that live action production companies are kind of getting retainers or being queued up for when this is relieved, that they're queued up for future projects, and they're kind of being put on hold with a money hold to wait for, hey, will you be available to do my project when the time allows for it? Now, so if you are live, like, you might want to start talking to clients of that, like start getting like a placeholder, a deposit for projects, and start queuing yourself up that way.
All right, now I'm going to be really shrewd right now, so nobody share this publicly.
Right. It's only on YouTube, but no one else will see it, Joel.
Exactly. But if I was running my live action production company right now, what I would be doing is reaching out to my best top clients and saying, hey, I've penciled your name in on our calendar because when production ramps up again in August or September, I want you to be at the front of the line because I know you have a lot of needs. Now, what that's you doing is that is you exerting your expertise, your power on behalf of somebody else's best interest. They don't have to take you up on it, but you'll be amazed how many clients will say, oh my gosh, that's so nice, thank you. I don't know if I can use it, take my name off. I don't need to put you on hold. But some clients are going to say, that's a great idea. We should talk about this project. It's a few months out. But it's just a way of, I think, you as the entrepreneur saying, hey, I'm willing to put my resources, my power, and my expertise and risk it on your behalf and put you at the front of the line. I have a lot of resources at my disposal that can help you. And I want to give you preferential treatment.
Ryan Summers said, where can I print up gift cards for future motion design services? I love it. Yeah, like, right. Is it like the Father's Day kind of thing for one hug, or I'll wash your car? We got like one motion design run. That's really great.
Well, let me share one little cool comment here, and then we'll get to another question. Artie just shot this to us. I thought this was cool. Do you mind? I'm guessing this is okay for me to share, Artie. You were saying we spent time with spreadsheets mapping out everything we have filmed for clients. We built video libraries and then sent them the spreadsheets to our clients so they could wrap their heads around what we know and what we have versus what they have no idea that they already have. And so for some clients, we even broke them into categories and topics. So okay, that's brilliant. Like what you're doing is you're helping your client. Hey, I have this pile of footage here. They're going to go, okay, what do I do with that? This is Artie, your team saying, let me help you connect the dots. There's something useful here. And if I categorize it for you, organize it for you, and start thinking on your behalf, now you see how to use it. So that's pretty cool. You like that one?
Joel, that Garson Yu taught me when I worked at Yu & Company, this principle of like, when you're busy, you work really hard. And when you're not busy, you work even harder. And Artie's momentum right there is exactly that of like, wait a second, it's a different type of work, but how can I do something for my clients that they didn't ask me to do that will kind of break through? It's so brilliant. Good job. Thanks for that.
Yeah. And by the way, that is so true. If anyone else is working harder than ever right now, just, give me a high five because I feel it. So Tim, here's a question from Gaston that I want to offer up. Gaston Sosa, this was a really, I think, relevant question that we can hopefully answer quickly because I know we're out of time here. But Gaston was asking, anyone here working with top-notch TV networks that require you to implement security policies like data encryption, vulnerability management, et cetera? And my thought on that, Tim, would be that, when we had Carrie Smith on the live stream earlier this week, she was essentially saying, you know what, this is a time right now where all those clients are going to need to sort of cool it and sort of relax some of these crazy standards. And this is an opportunity, I think, for some of us in the community that are the providers, the vendors, to get some more favorable terms and have some of these heavy burdens that are protecting the clients relaxed a little bit. Would you agree?
Yeah, first of all, yes, there are people that are working on these programs and they still need to stay within the security parameters. The clients I've worked with and worked through this process, we basically reached out to those clients and started telling them what we're doing and making sure it's clear what our processes and procedures are. There's obviously some things that need to be locked behind on the server. There are other items that you might be able to get permission and work from separately. So you want to work directly with your client, get that understanding. There are some big clients, and I'm not going to use their names, but they have a big Mickey Mouse head on a lot of their stuff, if you know what I'm talking about, that have very little flexibility in this time, regardless. So I actually, in the operations channel, posted this maybe like a week ago or something like that, and I was just started processing like best practices for this moment and ways that you create a policy within your company of how we're going to work together. because you have to come to work. You have to do that work in the workplace. And it's this, how do we protect each other and have an understanding, like a co-relationship with the other coworkers, that you can be safe in your working environment. And it's kind of really strict. It's based off of some practices I've gotten from some security experts, and some, honestly, part of it came from an old folks home that nearby, and what they're doing to protect their residents. So I thought, well, that you couldn't be any more extreme than that. But I just thought I'd put something out there as a possible policies internally you can work with if people do have to go to the office, still get projects delivered, and they can't take it home.
Yeah.
So there are a few ways of dealing with this. Talk to your client, see what the flexibilities are, put best practice in place, don't compromise, and then do some stuff within the workplace to still keep your employees safe.
Well, a few folks behind the scenes here have shot us a couple comments, and I think this is a good no-brainer. That clearly, if you already have a favored vendor status with a client, you're inside their security protocols and you've established that relationship, reach out to them first, because they're not going to be onboarding new vendors during a time like this. They're going to just go with who they know and who they trust. So that's obviously a no-brainer there. Well, Tim, I think we should wrap it up. It's 3 minutes past the hour here. Anything you want to share with people as we wind it down?
It's been a pleasure to be doing this every day. I think have been a few moments with Joel and I and Marcel to kind of get our stuff together and keep this conversation going on. But I hope you appreciate what we're doing. We appreciate you for being here and participating in these chats, these open conversations, and in the Slack group. More and more, we want to open up the conversation to you and bring you in. So please always feel free to come and be prepared this way. And then, as I said at the top of the hour, this is kind of like a great Easter weekend, and I want everyone to kind of know that they're in good hands, that there's great things about ready to take place, and this is a weekend of rest, to enjoy the family, to understand, to worship, whatever you guys do. Just take the time this weekend and make sure that's a priority. Over all things, we know God is good. He's going to take care of us. So be in his hands this weekend as you celebrate with your family.
Yeah, well, I love that, Tim. You and I had a really cool chat yesterday, reorienting our brains around this mission statement, right? That you and I both feel very strongly about, and that is helping owners thrive in business and life and career. So that's why we do it, and we're grateful that it helps you, and grateful to be a resource to you. So we will look forward to seeing everyone on Monday. We're going to have a whole new slew of some guests and some topics, and we'll continue processing and maybe just doing more therapy.
Yeah, exactly right. Bring home with therapy. Blessings to you all. Have a great weekend.
Have a good weekend. Thanks, everyone.